Good afternoon, this is Paul Cole with SuperGen Products Tech Line, and today we're going to be giving you a demonstration on one of our newest models, the Model 10306 2000 watt inverter, 1600 running watts. The features, which are many that are newer from our other models, and they're digital. It's got a digital panel that reads out, and I think you might like to know the functions of it. By also reading the manual, you'll understand them that much better. But there's many changes to this generator that our other ones do not have. So this is the latest of our 2000 series. So let me go over some of the features. Once again, it's 1600 running watts, 2000 watt peak for surge. The accessories it comes with are two items: a funnel and a USB adapter to go in the cigarette lighter adapter on the panel right here. Push that in there and put your cell phone charge cord into the USB adapters. The cell phone charger's got a 2.1 amp power out and a 1 amp power out for a little slower charge. As an option, you can also order a charge cord to be able to charge a battery. That is not included on this model, but it can be ordered separately by contacting SuperGen Products directly. Now, this particular model's got a full digital panel that reads out once it's been started. And let me go over the features of the startup. It's got a new dial on-off switch, and the various function on it all the way to the right, rotated to the right, is off. That one right there, the next one to the left, shuts the fuel off and allows it to run until the fuel burns out of the carburetor, and that's important for storage purposes. The next one is a green colored light, and that is your running position. All the way to the left is your full choke for starting. Let's give it a try once. Okay, the switch is on when it's all the way to the left, as well as the choke. Once it starts, you've got to turn it to the middle, to the run position. If you're going to store it, you need to turn it one more and let it run until the fuel starves out. That's your fuel shutoff. And all the way to the right, your valve is completely, this is your off switch. So, we'll go over to start on choke only. Let's give it a pull, see if everything goes into place. Open the choke to the run position. It will also run at that position where the gas is off until it runs out of fuel. And all the way to the right, shuts the engine off completely. So that's basically your startup functions on this knob, as well as your pull cord starter. Now, it also has an assortment of new digital functions that are important to understand. When we start it up, this panel will light up. And I will show you the functions of these. You've got an electronic fuel gauge on it. It tells you how much fuel you have in the tank by little bars of LED that go up from empty all the way to full, and proportionately. It also has a digital light in blue and a digital light in orange. When you first start it, you're going to see the digital light in blue, and that's going to tell you how much run hours you have on it total, and it will also give you the run hours that you've accumulated for the startup. So basically, let's say we've got 10 hours on, it's going to read 10, and then it's going to go to 0. The 0 is the starting time for the new startup. Now, after about 5 seconds, that blue light will turn to an orange light, and it will basically tell you how much time you have left on the existing fuel in the tank with the load that you're putting into it. As you put more of a load on it, the numbers will go down. Without any load at all, the numbers are going to be higher. So let's start it up once, see what it looks like. Go over the choke. Now watch for the blue light changing to orange after a few seconds. Blue light tells you how many hours it's got 0.36 hours on this unit. Now you'll notice it just went to orange. It says it's got 8 hours and 58 minutes of gasoline left, which actually has no load on it. If we plug something into that, this number will go down, give you a new reading for the amount of time left with the fuel in the tank. You'll notice over here it says empty, and it goes up in a bar graph form towards full. You know it's not full, but it appears like it may be half full. Now over here, right here is a yellow, will be a yellow light for your oil if it's low. That yellow light will shine. The oil is not low though. This one here will light up and tell you that it's time for servicing. It's got a service light on it that will activate when you reach that milestone. This right here is just a general light to light up the panel in the dark. Now, this button right here is a reset button. You also have a economy mode button, which is right here. If you push this, that's your economy mode. It will raise up its power level to the full 2,000 watts. You'll notice the fuel is going to get down. Put it back on economy mode, you'll get a different reading again. Okay, it's going to be very important to read this section in the manual explaining the power panel with its digital readouts. It's very clear and understandable as you read it. I would have the generator with you and run it and relate to each of the functions. Now, also it's got a new little feature that we find kind of interesting. If you take the gas cap off and you want to visually check your oil and it's dark, take the cap off and push this little button right here. You've got a light, a little LED light that shines over the gas cap. And you can look down in there and see how much gas you've got. It's a visual gauge, and the light allows you to see it in the nighttime. Push that back in and it stays in. This actually has a little battery in it, like a hearing aid would have, to operate that, and the instructions to replace it are in the manual. Now you've also got a funnel, or excuse me, what we call a fuel gauge. When you fill it up with fuel, they recommend you keep it at the line that is red here inside your fuel filter. That drops in your tank, and you will see the little red ring for your reading and your gas cap. Now, for transportation purposes, it's got a breather and a little knob that turns it on and off. When you're using the generator, you'll need the breather for the cap functional, so you put it into the on position. If you're going to transport it, turn your fuel to off, but where it will continue to run, burn the fuel out of the carburetor, Let it cool for 5 or 10 minutes safely, and then turn your gas cap vent to off. Now you can transport it safely without any fuel spillage through the cap. If you got a full tank and you're sloshing around the back of your car, you're apt to see some fuel purge out through the breather. But once you turn the breather to off, it can't do that. Now, you want to do it 5 or 10 minutes after it's had a chance to cool, because you'll get a certain amount of negative vacuum if you turn it to off and let the engine cool down on its own. As that gas tank cools down, it's going to give you a negative vacuum in the tank. And if you were to leave it to where the gas cap is not breathing and run the engine, it eventually is going to give it such a negative pressure it'll collapse the gas tank. Then you'll have less consumption, you'll have less storage for gas. This unit holds 1.1 gallons of fuel total. The unit weighs 48.6 pounds with a full load of gas, 1 gallon of gas. Down on your panel here, you've got outlets for household service, 120, and it's rated, these are rated at, the breaker on this is rated at 20 amps in order for the circuit breaker to pop. You won't get that high because the generator does not give you 20 amps. So you've got an 8 amp breaker here. It's a push to reset. It's a thermal breaker that operates your DC outlet. And one thing you want to understand about the DC outlet, if you are charging a battery with the power cord, there is no regulation or trickle down. You need to monitor your battery's use. Don't put your charge cord on it, walk away, and come back 4 or 5 hours later. It could produce an overcharge to the battery and destroy the battery. Below this, it's got a red and a black port, and that's intended to be able to put 2 of them together. Now we have a new parallel kit that straddles the handle, and the second unit goes on the top for this model. And you do need a parallel kit with the Paralink feature. We now have 3 parallel kits for our generators, so you want to be sure to order the right one. If you have any questions, give us a call. We'll tell you the exact one that you're going to use for 2 of these. Okay, the grounding stud is kind of a secondary thought. It's not really mandatory to use. Unless you plan on getting struck by lightning, there's not much use for it. Don't worry about driving a grounding rod into the ground and then connecting it to that bolt. It's not necessary. It's done as a liability reason from Champion, but no one's ever had to use the liability that goes with getting struck by lightning on one of these that I'm aware of. You want to run 87 octane fuel. Running any higher powered fuel is counterproductive. It's a low compression engine. Premium fuel requires high compression engines for its best results. You're just spending more money and getting no more performance. Now, let's take a look at this side of it. You'll notice here you've got a removable panel. It's got little rubber grommets to hold it in place here and here, and little guide pins down below. You might want to practice taking that on and off a couple of times. Fits just about perfect, and then when you get it up here, you give this knob a quarter turn, or actually it threads in, so you'll want to turn it 4 or 5 times and then it'll stay in place. Now, this is where you're going to check your oil, right here. You're going to fill it and drain it from the same hole. You'll notice there's a little trough here, a little rubber ducky on it. So when you drain it, you lean it over all the way and it will exit the engine. You'll also fill it the same way with the funnel that's included. Your air filter is underneath this bolt right here. You want to check your air filter periodically. Your manual will explain how to remove that and clean it. That's pretty much all. Your spark plug is right here, and you'll need to get a 13/16 plug wrench that'll drop down in there and remove the spark plug. Now, A popular accessory that we sell a lot of also is called a hour meter. And this is what it looks like right here. And we sell this, it's $17.95. It's got adhesive back. Stick it up on top of the generator. Put a small hole for the wire to feed through. And its installation is quite simple. You pull the spark plug cap off and you take one end of the wire lead, wrap it 5 times around here, take the wire tie and tie the wire ends together so it can't unwind, run the other end up through the hole, and it fastens through a little groove in the back and it senses the spark. And with that, it will give you an hour, it'll start the timer. This has a battery in it, good for about 3 years. It will read out the amount of time you've used it in tenths of an hour. If you start it up for 10 seconds and shut it off, it's going to run 6 minutes off it. Or, in other words, 1/10 of an hour the meter's going to read. So, it's a good item. It gives you a little gauge. It will normally read high based on your start-stop methods. If you start it and leave it run, it's going to do its full hourly read. If you start it up and shut it off, it's going to go 6 minutes, 1/10 of an hour. Okay. I think that pretty well covers it. Now, there is one item that you've got to address during its maintenance cycle. You've got a spark arrestor. That spark arrestor will accumulate carbon during its running time. We recommend you clean it every 100-150 hours at the most. And that will take your performance down. And if you're over 3,000 foot altitude, that carbon screen, or that screen is going to build up with carbon much faster. The faster it builds up, the higher the gas consumption, because it can't get rid of the exhaust. It's burning raw gas, and the raw gas builds up carbon on the spark arrestor. So very critical to clean